Welcome to the T-Pac Arcade. Quick photosensitivity warning. This game strobes when it's not displayed on an original Game Boy screen, so don't have a seizure. Today's game is ZAS for the Nintendo Game Boy. In this 1992 shoot-'em-up from T&E Soft, it's the future, and an alien colony has begun to inhabit Earth after we evacuated from rampant pollution. And yet, humanity proves to be the stubborn child of the galaxy, and launches a liberation force to drive out the new inhabitants from the planet we abandoned in the first place. It's not an operation I'm particularly proud to take part in, but this game is just so much fun that I like to ignore how petty the whole narrative is. And to imagine things wouldn't play out this way in a real-life intergalactic colonization fiasco would be to give mankind way more credit than we deserve. In any case, ZAS is basically the ideal meat and potatoes vertical space shooter. It expertly fuses both strategic and reflex gameplay, with a mix of wave-heavy open stages and obstacle-heavy corridor stages. And it fills each of them with flying enemies, stationary turrets, mid-bosses, and end-bosses to keep you on your toes. Not to mention plenty of unique stage hazards, like star rings with narrow openings for you to fly in and out of for bonus points, rotating flails that you can shoot to stop or change direction, deadly bean pods that regenerate their roots into blockades, and self-assembling barriers that redirect you all over the screen. Those barriers were pretty annoying, to be honest. Imagine strolling down the sidewalk while a construction crew spontaneously starts assembling scaffolding around you and dropping metal beams on your head. And also, the construction crew consists entirely of marching robots that want to shoot your face in the face. The bosses in this game also want to shoot your face in the face, and they've got quite a variety of ways to do it. Deploying bouncing mines that detonate into smaller projectiles when they're hit, blocking your escape with indestructible bricks, trying to corral you into a central danger zone with sweeping tentacle arms, dropping space tanks on you while forcing you to weave through a narrow lane between laser beams, trying to collide with you head-on while snaking around the screen and sending out homing missiles, and catching you from behind with a boomerang hula hoop of death. Well, when you're as uncoordinated as I am, all hula hoops could potentially be considered hula hoops of death, but that's beside the point. It's just some of the most unique stuff I've ever encountered in a shoot-'em-up, especially the monster that plugs up your side cannons at the start of the fight to reduce your firepower, and the dual final bosses that actually regenerate each other indefinitely if you don't destroy them both in quick succession. Which is bad news for me and my below-average gaming skills, but I can't help being enthralled with just how clever it all is. And it's not like I have to deal with everything empty-handed either. Aside from a few standard power-ups that upgrade your fire and grant you extra lives and single-use shields, the standout offensive mechanic in ZAS is the retractable satellite options. At any time, you can choose to deploy your side cannons for a weaker but wider triple shot, or pull them back in to consolidate your attack into a more powerful forward shot. And you'll need to use both configurations, since certain enemies are too heavily armored for anything but a strong attack, and cluttered screens can only be cleared with a wider firing range. Not to mention the side satellites can also be used as indestructible battering rams, basically like spaceship elbow pads that let you devastate anything and everything that dares invade the premises of your wingspan. As far as visuals go, ZAS may very well have the best graphics on the Game Boy, and the most interesting. Progressing through it is like witnessing some kind of bizarre real-time shoot-'em-up Darwinism, where spaceships evolve into monsters. I mean, first look at this cool but relatively standard cosmic battleship in Stage 1, then look at this crazy biomechanical crustacean beast in Stage 4. To be honest, by the end of ZAS, it seems like the artists just got tired of outer space themes altogether, since they also started replacing standard enemies with unicorn heads and butterflies. Going into this game, I didn't exactly expect to find myself dodging missiles from the mouths of unicorn heads, yet here we are. The music and sound effects aren't quite as novel. They sound relatively standard for a Game Boy action title, but they're still excellent in their own right. And I particularly love how over-the-top that power-up crescendo is. It rolls on like twice as long as it has any business lasting. Boy! The challenge level here is pretty accommodating, since it offers different skill settings and lets you start on any of the first 3 stages. That helped me practice the second half of the game way more efficiently, and it didn't take long before I beat the whole thing on easy mode. And the continues are particularly generous too, since they default you to your current checkpoint instead of sending you all the way back to the beginning of a level. My favorite aspect of ZAS is how it perfectly balances simplicity and ingenuity. It has all these neat level and boss gimmicks, but you navigate them with such straightforward mechanics that everything ends up feeling engaging without being overwhelming. Or overblown, because ZAS is only 5 stages long, ideal for a brief 30-minute shoot-'em-up fix. Granted, that's still 3 times as long as my media-addled brain can generally focus on one task, but we're on the right track here. And if I could change one thing about the game, I'd probably lower the number of hits that the standard popcorn-style enemies take. I'm used to clearing default waves much quicker, but the aliens in ZAS must have evolved into something a bit more resilient in their transition from spaceship to monster. Unicorn. Overall, I'm happy to say that ZAS lived up to my admittedly overblown expectations. When I discovered this game, it seemed like everything I wanted in a shoot-'em-up, so I had to get my hands on a copy. And not only did it impress me with its visuals and gimmicks and surprisingly accommodating gameplay, but it let me fight magical laser space butterflies, which is something I didn't know I needed in my life until I was enlightened by the majesty and wonder of the one and only ZAS.